For centuries, we've thought the answer to controlling rivers was all about concrete and steel. But what if the best flood defense system wasn't built by us at all? Today, we are diving into the incredible story of how Scotland's beavers, creatures once hunted to extinction, are now literally re-engineering the entire landscape and changing how we think about flood management. And this quote right here just says it all. After bringing beavers back to a Scottish forest, the hydrologists studying them were just stunned. The natural systems these little animals built were so intricate, so ridiculously effective, that our most advanced computer models just couldn't replicate it. It was a massive reality check. Nature's engineering was way ahead of our own. So picture this. For 400 years, Scotland's rivers were, well, broken. They'd been straightened out, turned into fast-moving channels that were just begging to flood. The whole landscape was losing its ability to handle water. And the solution, it turned out, wasn't some huge billion-dollar infrastructure project. Nope. It all started with just 11 animals. All right, so to really get the sheer impact of their return, we first need to understand what was lost. We have to go back and look at those 400 years when Scotland's rivers were flowing without their most important engineers. So let's turn back the clock. By the end of the 1500s, the last beaver in Scotland was gone, hunted out of existence. And for the next 400 years, the landscape went through a massive change. Without their dams slowing things down, the rivers got faster, straighter, and way more destructive. All those wetlands that acted like natural sponges, they just disappeared. It was a long, quiet period before the game-changing experiment in 2009. What happened was this engineering vacuum. Think about it. All that constant, tiny maintenance that beavers had been doing for thousands of years was just gone. Water had nothing to slow it down. It just ripped through the landscape, carving out the banks and making floods way more common and a lot more damaging. The land had lost its natural shock absorbers. Okay, so that brings us to the experiment itself. Faced with this centuries-long problem, scientists and conservationists asked a pretty radical question. What if we could actually undo the damage by bringing the original engineers back? Now, this wasn't just a case of, hey, let's dump some beavers in a forest and see what happens. Oh no, this was the first licensed mammal reintroduction in British history, and it was serious science. They brought 11 beavers over from Norway to a 44 square kilometer site, and they tracked everything. They put in sensors to measure water flow, they checked the chemistry, they counted the fish, cataloged the plants, creating this massive data set to see what the beavers would actually do. And really, this gets to a huge difference in philosophy, right? For decades, our approach has been all about control. We build concrete walls and dredge channels to shoot water off the land as fast as humanly possible. Beavers? They do the complete opposite. Their entire strategy is to slow water down, spread it out, and keep it in the landscape with these amazing, flexible, self-healing dams. And you know what? The beavers didn't waste any time. They got right to work building dozens of dams, turning these simple, boring streams into this beautiful patchwork of ponds and marshes. And pretty soon, you had these human engineers, guys trained in steel and rebar, absolutely captivated, studying blueprints made of mud and sticks. Imagine that. Okay, so the visual transformation was amazing, but this is where the story gets really, really compelling. The hard data from all that monitoring, it just blew everyone's expectations out of the water. Get this, 60%. That was the average reduction in the peak flood flow during big storms at the beaver sites. What does that actually mean? It means the beaver dams act like a giant sponge, soaking up that initial violent rush of water and releasing it slowly. That gives communities downstream precious time to prepare. It's a game changer. And to really wrap your head around the scale of this, check out the data from a similar trial down in Devon. Using drones and LiDAR sensors, scientists figured out that just one beaver-created wetland system was holding back over 24 million liters of water. That is the equivalent of 10 Olympic-sized swimming pools of floodwater just held there instead of reaching downstream. But okay, there was a big question, and a totally fair one. What about the salmon? We're talking about the iconic Atlantic salmon. They need to get upstream to spawn. So aren't these dams basically just roadblocks? It's a good question. Well, it turns out the answer was nope. The data revealed what's now called the salmon paradox. Turns out the dams were actually a huge help. First off, they aren't solid concrete. They're leaky, so water and fish can get through.
And they're usually on small streams, not the superhighways for salmon migration. But here's the kicker. Those deep, cool, calm pools behind the dams, they are perfect nurseries for young salmon, protecting them from predators in hot summer temperatures. The surveys found the young fish were absolutely thriving.
So the ecological success was just undeniable. But let's be real, bringing back an animal that literally redesigns the landscape, that's going to come with some challenges. You have to figure out how to live with them, right? And if you're a policy planner looking at this, the comparison is just night and day. Concrete defenses are insanely expensive to build and even more expensive to maintain. They're rigid, and they can fail spectacularly. Beaver systems, they cost nothing to install, they fix themselves, and they're flexible. They absorb storm energy. Plus, they bring a ton of other benefits, from cleaning the water to bringing back frogs, insects, you name it. Now, for farmers, this isn't just an abstract idea. Localized flooding on your best field is a real problem. But the good news is there are proven practical solutions. We're talking simple stuff like wire mesh around important trees, or these really clever pipes called flow devices that you can put through a dam to control the water level precisely. And on top of that, there are government compensation programs to help landowners adapt. So what happened at Knapdale wasn't just some cool, isolated science project. It turned out to be a blueprint, a whole new way of thinking about restoration that started to scale up and actually change national policy. And the potential for this to scale up is just incredible. While the official trial was going on, there was this unofficial beaver population over in another region, Tayside, that was just exploding. It went from about 150 animals in 2012 to nearly 1,000 in less than a decade. It proved they could do this all on their own, and all their engineering benefits could spread right along with them. All of this data, it was so powerful that it forced a major shift in policy. In 2019, the Scottish government officially gave beavers protected status. This was a huge deal. It was the government basically saying, yes, these animals belong here and they're vital to the health of our country's ecosystems. A huge win for science-led conservation. And this story isn't just about Scotland anymore. The success of the Knapdale experiment became the model for the rest of Britain. You're now seeing similar projects popping up from Devon all the way to Wales, all using that same data-first approach to show just how valuable these beaver-led restorations can be. So, for 400 years, something was missing from Scotland's rivers, and the system was broken. Bringing back the original engineers didn't just fix a flood problem, it totally upended our old way of thinking about controlling nature. And that really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? What other lost ecosystem engineers are out there, waiting to help us solve our biggest problems if we would just let them?